is actually obviously not too bad. Sometimes when you're accelerating a little bit, fairly hard, it does tend to sort of have a bit of a mind of its own when it wants to change gears, but that's fairly typical of Autotrans these days. The manufacturers tend to make them fairly nice and smooth in the way they drive. They don't want to be jerking backwards and forwards and constantly hunting for gears. This particular car is still fairly new. It's only got a couple of thousand Ks on the clock, so I'm not going to drive it ridiculously hard. It's still in running in mode. That said, it's from a handling point of view certainly a step up from the previous models. It's got the revised rear double wishbone suspension, like the manual transmission, with the stiffer rear sway bars and stiffer spring rates. It's got the McPherson front suspension. It's got the revised lower inner control arm bushes, which gives a lot more sharper steering response, which stops the front lower control arm moving around under heavy load. Of course, when you're braking and accelerating, there's less longitudinal movement and lateral movement in that joint, which is down underneath the feet where your where the control arm actually meets the chassis. The driving position, at the end of the day, is pretty much like our other video. I've said the cars, whether it's the hatch or the sedan 6-speed model, everything else is effectively exactly the same. This is a absolutely brand new model, still annoyingly require me to hit the agree button every damn time I want to use the center console for the sat nav and everything else. Still don't have automatic up and down, which I'm sure there's got to be a reason for that. Some of the Japanese models do have that overseas, but of course we don't get that in Australia. A little thing that this model does have, which is becoming more and more common across the range, particularly in the Subaru, is it's got fold-back mirrors, which is obviously controlled down on the button on the right-hand side. Doesn't have memory seats, but then the seats in this car are the leather option. Not so sure whether I'm a big fan of the leather in this car. You sort of tend to slide around a little bit. It really depends on what you're wearing. With this type of shirt, if I was at the track, I would have a bit of a battle holding myself in the seat. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, which I really think the manufacturers are starting to overlook and forgetting, is the main reason why you would buy this type of car is obviously to have fun. And one of those opportunities to have fun is to take away all the electronics and the stability control programming in the cars. Now, thankfully this car still has a mechanical handbrake, unlike the Subaru Liberty GT, which we've done in a separate video, has the electronic handbrake. No more having fun at skid pan days in that car, unfortunately. But one thing that I have noticed in this particular car is only got one mode to what we call dull down or change the stability control. Now I know that when I press that button down the bottom right hand corner here and it brings up the orange skid mark car with a slash through it, that will turn down the stability control, but I know it won't turn it off. And I reckon there's every chance, if I take this to a skid pan day, or if you're in other parts of the world, you want to go and have a bit of fun in the snow and you want to do a bit of drifting or some donuts or handbrake turns and things like that, frankly the car just won't let you do it. And more often these days we're getting clients coming to us and saying, how do I turn it off? I want to have some fun in my car. I'm really upset that Subaru have sold me this car, or Mitsubishi, or whoever it is, Mazda, that I'm being treated like an idiot because I can't turn all these damn stability control functions off and just go and have some fun on my own in a place. I mean, this is a type of car that you buy because you want to have fun. And the WRX is another really good example of that. You take it to an environment where you do long, big, constant radius turns and want to maybe get into a drifting situation. Let's be honest, not everybody wants to do that, but some people do. Get halfway through the turn and the car just says, no, I'm not going to let you do that anymore, and it starts pulling all the throttle out and saying, sorry, you've got to start driving it normally again. Now, I really think the manufacturers have to seriously consider that as an option. Other than that, from other thing that is notably different on the MY11 models, the Subaru have really gone out of their way to improve the, how do you describe it, the audible ambience of the exhaust system. Put your foot down. I don't know how they've achieved it critically, and I don't know how the hell they've passed the ADR compliance test, which is the same noise restriction that's been around for years. But what they have managed to do is get the exhaust system factory standard to sound a lot better, and also it certainly looks a lot better. I think one of the little tricks that they've taken is, if you look at the back of the car, you'll notice that the rear mufflers are set into the bumper a lot more than what previous models. Now, I know for a fact by testing our exhaust systems that that actually does make the exhaust louder, because there's more reflected noise out of the back of the rear bumper assembly that then comes into the cabin, whilst at the outside of the car, the noise measuring device that would be used to pass the compliance test would obviously still be very much the same. Of course, being a sedan model, this particular car has got twin rear mufflers, and on the Subaru STi model it's got twin outlets in those mufflers, so it's actually got quad outlets. The rest of the exhaust system moving forward is really not that much different, as is the rest of the engine configuration on the MY11 model compared to the 10, 9 and the 8. So what I'm effectively saying there is, if you look for this particular model and you're not too fussed about the noise and you're not too fussed about the way the car looks, the MY08 model STi is virtually identical, and certainly in power and performance, drivetrain and everything else. Of course, you can't get it in the auto trans version, but for everything else it's exactly the same. And of course, sedan and hatch, there is no difference.